We'd like to welcome everybody as you join the Zoom room. Welcome to this 5th episode of Navigating Now. We will begin in just about a minute. Thanks for joining. Welcome everybody as you join us. Welcome to the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. We're going to begin in just a minute. I'd also like to thank those of you who are joining us on LinkedIn. Welcome. We'll get started in just a minute here. Okay, let's get started. We want to welcome everybody to the 5th episode of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. We are really excited to welcome everybody from our community to the table. We've got some folks live with us within the Zoom webinar. We also want to welcome our LinkedIn community. We're broadcasting live to LinkedIn as well as Facebook and YouTube. So thank you all for joining. Couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We will begin in just about a minute as you all listen to our panelists and get engaged with the dialogue. If you've got questions, you can submit those via the chat box. We always reserve about 15 minutes towards the end of the discussion to handle any questions that you might have. And those could be questions for specific panelists or for the group in general. At the end, we'll cover on a few housekeeping items. And for those questions that we don't get answered, we'll make sure that we pass them on to the panelists. So again, welcome everybody to our Zoom webinar room. Also welcome those who are joining us on LinkedIn Live. Let's get into it. So today's episode 5, is all about leading in the new commercial model. You know, we had such great dialogue over the course of the first series, the first 4 episodes, on how we navigate through the immediate change of the pandemic. And in this next series of 4 episodes, we want to zoom in a little bit closer to how our commercial model and our business model will be changing as we think about and approach re-entering the marketplace. And we've got an incredible panel today of leaders from different industries that are here to tee up this discussion. So I'd like to first introduce our panelists. First, we have Rodrigo Cano. He is the COO at Bien Trucha Group. Thank you so much for joining us, Rodrigo. And it looks like he might have dropped off, so we'll wait for him to jump back on as I introduce our other 2 panelists. So secondly, we have Tom Schoener. He's the CCO at Ambry Genetics. Tom, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, Tom. And finally, we have Matt James. He's the COO of Hickory Farms based here in Chicago. Thanks so much for joining us, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. Happy to be here.
All right. So finally, I would also like to introduce our facilitator, as always, Cathy Hawk. She's a partner here at Thoughtium. Cathy will be leading the discussion today, and hopefully we'll get Rodrigo back online as Cathy begins the discussion.
Ta-da.
I see he's popping on. Yes, there he is. Cathy, I will hand it over to you to get the dialogue started.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I'd like to start with our panelists and just ask them to say a little bit more about their current role as a leader in their organization. And maybe also to start things off, perhaps you could share a piece of good news. Matt, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Matt James, as Anthony said, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Hickory Farms. My focus there is really part making sure we operate well as an organization, and part leading about half of the teams and functions of the company, primarily behind the scenes. So everything from product development, supply chain, and technology. So it's been a pretty busy time for us these last few weeks as we've been navigating this change. In terms of something positive, I'll say that My team is about 20 minutes away from shipping everything for Mother's Day. So for everybody that got their order in, rest assured it's on the way and mom will be happy.
Great. Thank you so much. Nice to have you, Matt. Okay, Tom, how about you?
Excellent. So my name is Tom Schoener, the Chief Commercial Officer for Ambry Genetics. The commercial organization at Ambry consists of your traditional sales and marketing, but it's sales, marketing, service, medical affairs, business development, market access, our commercial operations team, the learning and development group. Yeah, those are basically the 9 departments that make up the commercial team. So anything that touches customers pretty much is what we do. As you can imagine, like many businesses, we've gone through a pretty big transformation over the past couple of weeks. Happy to share some of the insights that we've learned and some of the changes that we made to our organization today. And then something positive. Well, I now know it's Mother's Day on Sunday, so that is a good thing. Thank you, Matt. And as we were talking earlier, I think like many of you who have children, I have 3 teenage sons who are stuck at home for the past, 6 weeks now, and they haven't killed each other yet. So that's also very positive.
Thanks, Tom. Great to have you. Okay, wonderful. Rodrigo, how about you? A little bit about your role and some good news.
Yeah, hi, how are you, Cathy? So I'm the Chief Operating Officer of BM3 Group. We're a group of restaurants out in the west suburbs of Chicago. Pretty much my role is pretty much everything that has to do with with the restaurant business, from to operating, to coming up with new systems, working with technology, working with chefs, mixologists, all the supply chain, just making sure that everything logistically is operating so that we can provide a high level of hospitality, which is one of our main core of the business. So yeah, right now it's kind of like trying to figure out what everything as we go. So, and one positive thing is that it was Cinco de Mayo, and it fell on a Tuesday, on Taco Tuesday, and we had we break a record in sales, amazingly.
Oh wow!
We had to stop our online orders right before we opened for the day because we had so many that stop all our channels. So that's something really exciting that happened this week.
Wow, that's great to hear. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. As Anthony said, we're going to talk today about the commercial model. I know you all have lots of involvement with that in your respective organizations. Maybe we can start with you, Tom, and just find out, given the challenges you have faced in the diagnostic industry and the extent to which things have been changing so dramatically over the last 8 weeks, we would love to hear from you what the effect has been on your commercial organization and how you've managed that within the larger Ambry entity.
Sure. Yeah, I think most companies of all shapes and sizes have been impacted at some point, in particular in the healthcare space. So Ambry Genetics is one of the largest genetic testing companies in the world. We're located in Aliso Viejo, California, and we have samples, either saliva specimens and or blood specimens from patients from all over the United States and ex-US as well, come into our laboratory where we process these tests. The majority of our volume are patients who are affected with cancer. So it's pretty serious business what we do for sure. But what we've seen in the marketplace for lots of services, and most of these patients go to the health system where they get their sample taken and then shipped to us. They've been told, unless it's critical, not to come in. And so hospitals are trying to really focus on the COVID-19, only taking critical patients, people who are not sick or barely sick, not to get exposed. And with that, we've seen a decline in our business. Many of my competitors at this point have gone through furloughs and layoffs. We fortunately are taking other cost reduction plans in an effort not to do that as much as possible. But for our base book of business, we've definitely seen a change. And some of the things that we're doing is trying to become a much better online service to our customers as well as to our patients. Started figuring out how do you ship kits directly to the patient so they can do a saliva test versus a blood test and make that an easy experience. How do we aid our physicians and genetic counselors through virtual tools so that we can interact with them and they can interact with their patients as well. So we saw, and it's interesting because we saw this pretty significant dip. And then as people started to get a little bit more familiar with how to work with us online, or they got a little bit more familiar with the tools, we saw a little bit of an increase in our business. So not back to where we were by any means, but the base book of business is somewhat stabilized. Now we're cautiously optimistic as people start to go back to work. We'll see a little bit of change in June and July. The other major shift that we made in our business is we culturally, our company felt like anybody who could do something about this pandemic. And especially for healthcare companies, like if you can be doing testing, you should be doing testing. If you can be supplying these health systems with protective gear, you should be doing that. So we very quickly started to shift, time, money, and resources to a product. It's called CARE. It stands for a Comprehensive Assessment, Risk, and Education Tool, and it's CARE for COVID-19 testing program. And what we're finding from employers is they don't know like who they should test, what tests they should use, how frequently should I do it, what do I do with this information if I want it at all, and then like literally, how do I get my folks back to work in a safe format and have a program to manage it for me. So we built out a software platform that does all of that. It'll be incorporating everything from a symptom checker through a pretty sophisticated chatbot. This chatbot can extract all the information that we need from the individual to help determine which tests they use. And then we'll also supply the antibody testing, the viral testing, a smell test to incorporate to this, and then wrap this all around a software platform that will literally give people the green light or red light to go back to work or not go back to work and be able to interact with them on a daily basis. So that's one of the big initiatives that it'll launch. First version comes out in June, and then we'll continue to add more features and bells and whistles to it as we learn more about the science behind serology testing and things of that nature. But I was very proud of our company because we very quickly pivoted and put a lot of people and resources to help people get through this pandemic.
So you were able to use your testing techniques and technology and apply it to COVID-19 without having done any of that previously?
So the CARE platform, we actually had that software platform, and it was designed as a population health tool. So I could engage with Matt and extract enough information from Matt to determine, based on his health score and his family history, what his lifetime risk for cancer is. And then it would educate Matt on it, get his consent to move forward with testing. We do the testing, we deliver the results. So that platform was there, but we very quickly took that base foundation and pivoted it towards COVID-19. And then for the testing, we weren't doing this testing in-house, but we went out, we bought the equipment, we got the reagents, we're getting our folks trained, and we're gonna go live in June.
Wow, that's exciting.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's
really exciting. I'm gonna give you a call.
Yeah, please do. The employees rally around stuff like that, right? And so as bad as times are, it gave a burst of hope, if you will, that things are going to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, it's a really interesting story. And also some serious challenges that you experienced with the drop off in your patient involvement and the population of the people you were serving. It sounds like that was also a difficult thing to navigate.
Yeah, what's interesting, just business models, because as I look across like the stock market, and I know a lot about my industry, not as much as your all's industry, but a lot of these companies have been running on fumes, and they burn through a lot of cash, and they're public, so they go back to the market, but most of them are not profitable, and that's okay until times turn, right? And then things have to change dramatically, and they've had to lay hundreds and hundreds of people off due to the fact that they're operating a non-profitable business model. And again, that's great when times are good, but that's not great when times are bad. And you're seeing some significant pivots from these companies who were operating in the red.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's bring in our other panelists and we'll find out what pivots they have had to make. It's a great word and a wonderful setup. So Matt, you work in the food gifting e-commerce business, and we'd love to hear from you how you've had to manage your commercial model differently over the last 6 to 8 weeks and what some of those impacts have been.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big change here in the last couple of months for us. We're in an interesting position as a food gifting retailer. We actually sell through 4 different channels. We have our direct-to-consumer online e-commerce business. We have a corporate gifting team that's calling on corporate customers. We sell through other retailers, so we can be on shelf at a Walmart or Target. And then we operate our own stores, which many folks may have had an experience with. Those are primarily in malls, and they're almost exclusively only there in Q4 around the winter gifting time period. So we don't have any stores open right now, which is fortunate for us as far as retail goes right now. But this time of year for us is usually a little slower. We're usually catching our breath and getting ready for Q4 and planning. We have some little lifts around Valentine's Day, Easter, Father's Day. Mother's Day has often been the smallest of all of those for our business, so it is a pretty good gifting business. But this year, since March 12th, when the real COVID-19 impact took place and you saw the stay-at-home orders start happening in states across the country, our e-commerce business has actually been off the charts. There's really something there about folks who can no longer make the physical connection with their friends and family. They're kind of flocking to the food gifting category to send food to people that they might have otherwise been with. So whether that's for Easter or Mother's Day, you can't make the trip to see the family, but they're sending food instead. And for us, that's created some unique challenges. First, obviously, short term is just keeping the staff safe. We're operating our distribution centers, and so ensuring that we've got everybody there and healthy and able to continue to work. That's the first priority. And then the second challenge we're dealing with is that because we haven't historically had this sort of business this time of year, we're also now running into product supply issues. And so just trying to keep the product coming in the building so that we can continue to meet the consumer demand has been a real challenge. But our e-commerce business, for the last couple of months is now up very significantly, well over 2 or 3x what it had been in previous years. And so now, of course, that's going to create a fun forecasting challenge next year when you try to figure out what Mother's Day looks like in 2021. But it's quite a shift. And then while that's all going on, we're busy planning for Q4 and trying to think about what the retail environment will look like and what the economic situation will look like, and how do we continue to lean in to some of this really strong e-commerce growth when you might not have as nearly a strong mall situation come October, November.
Out of curiosity, so the other channels, were they stable? Did they dip? Did this one make up for it? Like what happened?
In this time of the year, we don't operate the retail stores, so it's really just our e-com business is our primary channel. Okay. And then we have a small wholesale business right now, but not a lot of gifting. The retailers don't merchandise nearly as many food gifts, except for in Q4. So we're on shelf with summer sausage and cheese and crackers, and those have also seen an increase, with the significant boom in grocery shopping and snacking, people buying more for the house. So we've seen a little bit of an increase there, but nothing compared to what's happened on the e-commerce side.
Yeah.
Really
Matt,
interesting.
I've got a question for you, Matt. Do you foresee consumer behavior shifting or changing for good? Or do you think that this is more of a single point in time where you'll have to adjust to the current time? Do you see this being a long-term thing?
I think it is maybe not a permanently long-term, like maybe not the full extent of this will be long-term permanent, but it's definitely going to be a big step change that doesn't go back. In a lot of cases, these are trends that have been happening for years, and this is just an acceleration.
It's just squeezing it.
Everybody's buying everything online now because they have to, even the groceries. Groceries were sort of the last holdout for online shopping forever, but even now that's happening. So I do think that whatever normal looks like when we're past this is not going to be what it was before.
Yeah. When you've got product, are you able to shift it with relative ease between channels? I guess if you project it, you can, but if you don't project it, how easy is it to move product between channels?
Yeah, our team's been sort of really developing those flexible competencies the last couple of years to shift inventory between our channels based on where the demand is. That's one of the benefits of being multi-channel retailer is you never know exactly which year which channel will be the strongest, so you can shift a little bit. But right now we're just trying to keep up in the distribution center with getting product in and shipping it out. So we're looking to catch our breath next week after Mother's Day and then gear up for a really big Father's Day.
Good problem to
Yeah.
have.
It's definitely
Yeah.
a good problem to have.
Mm.
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks so much. Rodrigo, we all hear a lot about the restaurant industry, and we know that that has been hard hit through the COVID-19 experience. We would love to have your perspective on how you have had to make some adjustments to your commercial model and what that has looked like for your business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first it was the initial reaction when we started seeing what was happening around the world was, all right, it's gonna come to us, and we need to stay ahead of what's coming. And our first thought was like, okay, we need to figure out the safety of our staff and our customers, and how our business and also our staff, right? People started getting scared of like, okay, now we're gonna have to shut down. What's gonna happen? People are gonna go unemployed. So when that happened, we kind of like had to like shift our business model to like, okay, from from being a hospitality business where we are in direct contact with our customers and staff, to now what we can do to stay afloat and to change, you know, the direction of our business. Because the first reaction was like, we cannot shut down. We cannot, this is part of our responsibility in the hospitality sector, is that we're leaders in our communities. So we have that responsibility of leadership and showing our communities that, hey, we can get creative. So that's been kind of like our business model for the last 8 weeks, creativity. It's been trial and error. Every week we have a new challenge. Every week we have a new target. You know, the first 2-3 weeks, it was like, okay, we're gonna, you know, get through this 2-3 weeks. Hopefully we'll be able to start, you know, to recover and get back open. But 2-3 weeks, we realized that it wasn't gonna be, you know, weeks. We saw that it was gonna be months. And at that point, we decided like I mean, we operate 4 restaurants. One of them is more of like a high end. It's on the 5th floor of a hotel. Most of our business is private events and large parties. And so that one didn't make, you know, sense to keep it open. So we had to that one. The other 3 restaurants that we operate are Mexican concepts, so tacos, margaritas, ceviches, a lot more casual. So it was interesting because we were actually, before this happened, we were shifting to be more prominent on the e-commerce. I mean, restaurants, especially our type of restaurants, are known for, you know, you come for the experience, right? You come to get an experience at a restaurant rather than just buying food or drinks. So we saw that we needed to really get into the e-commerce and get our online channels more effective and friendly for our guests to log in and order, you know, food. So luckily, because we were already working on that, we were able to change our operation into pretty much just fully online within a week. We had to reduce our menus. We had to make big changes on our operations. We had to furlough over 100 employees and keep only our management team. So right now we're only operating with our team, which consists of about 20 plus people, which it has been very challenging as well to motivate, you know, my team that are, you know, that didn't sign up to be on the phones all day or to manage, you know, e-commerce, you know, to change this model. So it's been very challenging, but at the same time, we have realized the level of creativity and the you know, it's amazing how on these trying times we all, you know, you figure out who's really on your side, and just those amazing ideas that come up, going through this. I mean, we're already working on ghost brands. Ghost brands, I don't know if anyone is familiar with ghost brands, but basically is a virtual restaurant that can operate out of a physical, physical kitchens. So it only lives online. So the idea for this is just to create more, just another revenue stream, other options for people to log online and to see that there are other options, not just, what we have. So that's something that we've been, new marketing and strategies. I mean, it's crazy how, now we're doing like day-to-day marketing strategies because people are on their phones, on their computers, just waiting to hear from us or waiting to hear what's going on. Yeah. So yeah, that's been, I guess, kind of like our shift for the last 8 weeks.
Wow. Sounds like you've had a lot to manage.
Yes.
Are your restaurants located in one geographic area, or are they a little bit more spread out? I'm not sure where you are based.
So, so we have 4 restaurants. The original one is in Geneva, and then the other are about 25 to 30 miles apart. So, okay. I mean, they're relatively close, but we have a different for each of them, for sure. Okay. And that's also, we have realized how, also the community commitment from the different, towns that we are operating at. I mean, it has been incredible, the support of some communities. I mean, like I said, last, on Cinco de Mayo, we broke a record on sales. Unbelievable. I mean, it got to a point that we're like, we need to just stop everything because we're not going to be able to fulfill all the orders. I mean, at one point we had like, I don't know, about 100 orders in 1 hour coming in, and we're like, all right, that's it, Wow. So yeah, and we also have we have a commissary, so that helps a lot right now to kind of like changes, I mean, rapidly to be able to make adjustments, and that distribution, it has helped us a lot also to keep our cost, our labor cost at a minimum, and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear so many different challenges that you have each faced in going through the conversions and the pivots and the adjustments that you've made over the last, 2 to 3 months. And I think one of the really intriguing things so often for the people listening on today's call is to understand what you have personally been challenged by in your role as a leader. So Matt, maybe we'll start with you. What would you say has been most challenging about some of the conversions you've had to go through with your commercial model, and maybe just a couple of thoughts about how you've been able to manage those?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest challenge is just the pace of change in this, because I think Rodrigo just alluded to that. Things change on a daily basis. So it's no longer just having a plan and then getting the team aligned and executing it. The plan itself might have to change every single day. And so managing that through the organization is probably the biggest challenge. I have been completely pleasantly surprised by how effective our teams have been able to go to just 100% working remotely, with the exception of our operations team. But our office staff just, completely pivoted to being 100% remote and has been really effective. But I think the challenge of just keeping them aligned on priorities, and as information shifts, changing those priorities is hard, right? For me, that's I think the one tip I have there is just being really explicit that that's what's going to happen, right? We just have to level set with the team that we only know what we know, and it's changing constantly, and therefore we're going to have to change constantly. And then I've tried to be pretty explicit with the team on how we want to communicate those changes. So making sure everybody understands when and how we'll communicate when we have a change in direction or a shift in priority or something else that becomes the hot topic of the day.
It sounds like maybe even identifying those patterns early on and letting people know that those are going to have to shift so that everybody understands what the new way is going to look like. And then you can cascade those messages, it sounds like, much more quickly.
Yeah, we're used to, you know, by the middle of May, we will have normally already committed to a fair amount of our purchasing plan for the year with our key suppliers. And we haven't even started that right now. And so my purchasing team is freaking out every day. And so we just have to continue to deliver the message of flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. And that means, you know, helping them highlight what really is critical, not just we need to do it May 7th because we normally do it May 7th, but maybe we only need to do 20% of that today. And we have to bring our suppliers into that conversation and make sure they understand where we are as well, because it's hard to predict what November will look like today. And, you know, we just can't sort of operate the way we always have.
Right, so you have a new cycle of activity that comes in the midst of the annual planning, and you're having to make adjustments in both directions. It sounds quite
exactly, and it's not the easiest to pivot on a dime like that. And you know,
for sure.
The work is already crazy and ambiguous for people, so this just takes it up to another level. So I spend a lot of my time just trying to take stress out and help people focus on what do we actually know and what do we actually have to do, and then let's just solve that problem and not be too overwhelmed by everything else that's out there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a great role for you as a leader. Rodrigo, how about you? What would you say has been most challenging for you in your role as a leader, and how have you tried to manage that?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's been motivating my team. I think keeping my team focused, safe, and at the same time, that daily motivation that, hey, we're going through this. We know we didn't sign to be kind of like a online, you know, fast casual type of restaurant, but we have to do it, you know, and just staying, you know, on that positive note. It has been very challenging, just because, I mean, you know, my teams are on the front lines. I mean, it's since this started, we haven't shut down, you know, and that's been kind of like, you know, my motto. It's like, we're not here to win the competition. We're here to stay, you know, make sure that we finish, you know, strong. So that has been, you know, the most challenging. I mean, every morning also, now that, you know, I'm kind of like micromanaging my management team. It's just sending an update, you know, on with a text message, just kind of like motivating them, sending them like a soundtrack of the day, just so that they're not just thinking about, you know, what on the world. And so that has been the most challenging, and also just steering away from our core model, which is hospitality. You know, like my teams are used to talk to guests on a daily basis, and now it's not happening. You know, that's been also very challenging.
Yeah, making those connections, which they're so used to, and really probably helps them feel that energy every day. So it sounds like you're doing what you can to supplement that, to bring that in other ways and other places, so they can still be engaged in the work they're doing.
For sure, I'm bringing hospitality to my team, you know, rather than to the guests. So that's what's pretty much what's happening with me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Tom, how about you? What would you say has been most challenging in your world, and how have you tried to deal with that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. A couple of things, you know, as I share with you, we're building out a holistic platform and a testing program that would typically take a company, 9 to 12 months to build. We're trying to do it in 2 to 3 months. And so that has been a challenge in itself. But I'll echo some of the comments that Rodrigo and Matt made. Communication is really, really important right now. And because of what the departments that I work with do, we like the energy and the drive of the company really comes from the commercial organization. And how do you maintain that same energy and drive for performance, giving the company confidence that we're going to be able to power through this thing, and we've got a good plan and we're going to get through it, in an effort to make sure that they are focused, they do have confidence, that you're reducing anxiety. Like that's a lot of what my day-to-day is right now, is just making sure that we don't skip that beat, without over promising. And so the sky is not falling, but yet the world is not all rosy either. And so I think that honesty and transparency and then over communicating to the employees is really important. What I've found in my career is that without details, they will make up their own, and they're almost always bad. So having a plan, communicating it often, and things are going to change. That's okay, just as long as you're making sure that you share that with them. So I agree with what Rodrigo and Matt had said on those fronts for sure.
Yeah, I've heard the importance of the details. I've heard Matt say, be really explicit. Sometimes we think we're so clear and people still don't really get it. So, asking that question and having them say what they think it is instead of saying it one more time. And I heard Rodrigo talking a little bit about how important it is to pass on that positive message so that you can help keep other people really up and focused. I also heard all three of you talk about the importance of priority. So it's interesting, some of the common themes that I hear emerging, and communication obviously is a huge focus at a time like this when things are literally changing, as I've heard you all say, almost every day. So maybe just to build on that, and we've all learned so much during this tumultuous time, and it is true that innovation comes out of a lot of the disruption we've been living through. We'd love to hear you maybe share one piece of advice, something that has really been true for you over the course of the last 6 to 8 weeks. What would you like to share with our listeners today in terms of something that you think would be helpful to them? And Tom, maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. I think regardless of the challenge, it's interesting. Not that leading is easy by any means, but when all the charts are going up and to the right and things are all going well, it's a lot easier to lead. It's when the challenge hits and the hurdles come up or the pandemic approaches your business. This is where really leaders have to really step up and lead on this. And I think first and foremost is to take a step back, assess your business, and be able to accurately forecast what you think is going to happen. I think it's really, really important for people not to act right away until they understand what the landscape looks like. So that's critical. Once you have the idea of what it's going to look like and you can forecast it, then as Matt said, you have to adjust your plans. And sometimes you have to do them a lot, but you have to adjust the plan. And then once it's buttoned up, it's the communication. And I will say this over and over again, as the leader at the top, you have to over communicate what that is. You have to communicate it with a lot of confidence, very transparent. And again, the sky is not falling and the world is not that rosy. It's somewhere in between, but just making sure that you have that plan and that you're sharing that with the entire group, and not just and like in our roles, not just our departments, but like the entire company needs to understand this stuff. So that's what I would say.
Wonderful. Love that. That's great. Okay, thanks so much. Rodrigo, how about you? What's one piece of advice you'd like to pass along to our listeners today?
Yeah, sure. I think one is to think outside the box, execute those ideas, see if they work. If not, move on to the next one until you figure it out. And the other one is to take this opportunity to rethink your business model. What can we do to change within our businesses to be better and more sustainable post-COVID, era? That's something that's been in for the last, couple weeks, and I think it's a good opportunity for everyone to really rethink your business and try to make it better. Because a lot of innovation, like everyone is talking, a lot of innovation is coming afloat, and the over communication that all leaders are committed to provide right now, it's making this business models to pivot in a better direction, I believe.
Rodrigo,
Yeah,
question.
wonderful.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Leah.
No, go ahead.
When things go back to normal for your business, will you maintain the changes that you made and go back to the original? So now you have multiple channels that you didn't have before, or do you just go back to the original model?
Yeah, that's something that we've been discussing with the rest of my partners. I mean, even before this started, we knew that we wanted to steer fast casual type of environment as far as because of the lack of workers and so that's something that we're actually like rethinking. Is this a good time to actually redo our business in the way that we want to see it for the future, and that could be more sustainable, that can really provide other opportunities. So it all depends. I think it all depends. If we're able to open in the next few weeks, I don't think a lot will change, but we'll definitely gonna adapt what we're already adapted. The online stores are working out amazingly for us, so that's something that's not gonna change. It's gonna stay post-COVID, and I think people are also understanding how easy it is to order through our websites rather than going to Grubhub or other third-party delivery or online services.
Yeah. It will be so interesting. I think, Tom, you asked a really important question, which is what of the changes will live on? Which ones will we carry with us into the future? I think that will be a fascinating study as we look out on the horizon, whether it's 2 months out, 6 months out, 12 months out. And I'm sure there'll be lots of great conversation about that as we move forward. Thanks so much. Matt, how about you? What piece of advice would you like to share with people?
I would definitely agree with everything Tom and Rodrigo said. And so maybe just add, I think this has been, particularly with the working remotely environment, a big change and opportunity to really listen a little bit more with my team. It's a lot harder to really figure out how things are going when you're not physically with somebody. So just trying to put a little bit more effort and time into checking in, not on the work, right? But it's not new that everybody has a life outside of work, but this situation is really blurring the lines and kind of forcing a little disruption. I'm pretty fortunate that my team's, kicking butt and is really strong. And so I'm really leaning into making sure they're okay and have what they need, and trying to get out of their way a little bit, right? So if I can just make sure they know what the priorities are, then they know what to do, but really just trying to listen.
Yeah, this environment has given us an opportunity to spend a little bit more time with the whole person. We see into people's now home lives and a little bit into their home settings. And I think that's given us a fuller understanding of one another. We're not just people in a professional space, whatever that space might be. Now we have a fuller understanding of what's going on in the rest of people's lives. I think it opens up new space, as you're describing. Thanks for that. Okay, wonderful. Anthony, we'd like to pass the baton to you. I know we've got some questions that have come in from the listeners today, and our panelists are ready to receive those questions.
Great, thank you very much. So we had a handful of questions come in, and it looks like all of them are for all or any of the panelists. The first one comes in from our Zoom room. This is for all the panelists. What are some of the unexpected opportunities that you're seeing from these changes? And this could be for anybody to step in and answer.
I'll go first. For us in the diagnostic space, the unexpected opportunity is that we were going to be doing COVID testing, right? So I think that was a big change. It was the right thing to do, and we were able to do it, so we did it. So that would probably be the biggest piece of it. It also accelerated the launch of our employer solutions business unit, which I was not intending to do this fiscal year. We were going to dabble in it, not really launch it. And now there'll be millions of people that will be going through our platform and program this year, which I hadn't anticipated at all. So I think that was a pretty big change and shift in dynamics for the company.
Thanks, Tom. Any other unexpected opportunities? I know you spoke to a few of them earlier, but anything you'd like to share, Matt or Rodrigo?
I mean, I think this has certainly helped with identifying all of those meetings that don't really need to happen. All of a sudden, they're just getting canceled, which is good for everybody's time.
Yep.
And then in our world, we have a few things that are normally quite physical, you know, with real product, and we're doing staging, and we haven't been able to get the teams together to do that. So they've been forced to adapt and find other ways. And the creativity that they've shown, I think, has actually given us better results than we got with the old process. So it's a change that they wouldn't have bothered taking on if everything was normal.
Yep. That's great.
One for us, I guess it's, I mean, it was kind of unexpected, but expected once, you know, we were locked in our homes. It was the consumption of alcohol. It went off the roof. And now we're actually making margarita or cocktail kits and cocktails to go. And that has been a huge opportunity for us. So yeah, that was one of those unexpected, you know, opportunities that happened right away.
I don't know what he's talking about at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely bringing out different consumer behaviors. That is for sure. I know that for a fact. And I have friends that are using services like yours, Rodrigo, to gift margaritas, even single margaritas, to their friends, which has been this kind of interesting way of interacting with people from afar. It's just so interesting. Right. We have another question that could be for anybody. For all the panelists, how have you handled the emotional experience that comes with the constant shifts in strategy? And that could be either for yourself or for your team. One of the things that I really like that I heard, you know, Tom mentioned before is the focus on forecasting and making sure that you're not reacting in the face of, you know, the short term, that you've got good line of sight before you communicate out. Are there any other thoughts on kind of how we're handling the emotions of the constant changing today?
Trying to take advantage of the lack of commute to get up and out of the house for a run every morning. Yeah. Just to take a little stress off, to take care of me. And then with my teams, it's really just, like I said, listening and sort of walking them off the edge and just trying to focus on what we can control and not get too overwhelmed and stay in a balance. You know, one of the things we've done with our communications is to really try to maintain that balance and not be overly terrified or overly optimistic, and just, you know, recognize the real challenges we have, but also recognize the confidence we have in our organization to overcome them.
Yeah, that's great.
I think when you're changing directions and plans more frequently than people are comfortable with, it does create stress, anxiety, some inter-team dynamics that you wouldn't want to see. And I have this thing where I try to practice what I preach. It's seek to understand, and just go into this knowing that everybody we're working with has good intentions. Like, there's no malice. People aren't trying to do you wrong. Just first seek to understand, and then have a conversation, communication, and then take action. In times like these, it's hard to do, mind you, but it's good advice.
Yep, absolutely. We have a question for Rodrigo. There's a question around, Rodrigo, you asked your frontline managers to play different roles. How are you motivating them to step up in new ways?
Yes. So, I mean, like I was talking earlier, our core is hospitality and to provide an experience to our guests. Are taking away from the picture, then, you know, we had to put our managers on those on the front line. It didn't make sense to keep our servers and bartenders and all the front of the house staff when we didn't have guests. So that was kind of challenging to get together and try to rethink the model during this era. And it was just pretty much let's get it done. Let's try to figure it out. Let's get through this. And it's been, like I was saying, motivation has been challenging, just because it's a new challenge every single week. Luckily, our sales have been trending up, so that a lot of positive motivation within our teams. But also knowing them that they have a secure job, that we're providing them with with their health insurance, that we're creating all this funds also for our staff, that it's furlough. So that has been also part of the motivation, that we're the leaders and we need to make sure that we can have something for the rest of our staff to come back to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. With that, we want to make sure that we wrap up with a few minutes for folks to get to their next Zoom meeting. So I want to just close things up first and foremost by really thanking our community for stepping in and joining the discussion. Next, I really want to thank our panelists. So Tom and Rodrigo and Matt, thank you so much for stepping into the conversation, providing insight and perspective. It was really valuable. We've had a lot of comments in the chat about how valuable it is to hear leaders from different corners of the business world, and the diversity of the thought today was incredible. So thank you all again, Tom, Rodrigo, and Matt. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Thanks.
We would like to share that our Navigating Now Roundtable series continues. We go live every Thursday at 3 o'clock Central. And as I spoke about before, this discussion today really tees up the next 3 episodes in the series, where we go a little bit deeper in different functional areas of the commercial model. And so next week, we're going to have a handful of marketing leaders talking about how our marketing and communications efforts will be changing now and for the foreseeable future. We'll dive into the people model and the learning model in subsequent weeks. So we ask everybody and invite all of you to join us every Thursday at 3 o'clock Central. You can register for these talks at thoughtium.com/live. And as always, we're broadcasting on LinkedIn as well too. We also would like to share that, we've been, over the course of the last several weeks, we have heard a lot of people talk about their desire to continue this discussion and go deeper in sharpening their leadership skills. And so we're offering a unique 90-day experience for leaders to get together in cohorts much like this and talk about these topics and solution together and get some coaching as well too. So if you're interested in learning more, you can find that at thoughtium.com/accelerator. We would love to hear some of your thoughts on how we can provide value in that area. So again, to our panelists, to our community, thank you all so much for joining. We will see you next Thursday at 3 o'clock, and we hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.